Okay, so if it's okay with everybody, if you can mute your microphones if you're not speaking, that would be wonderful. And at any time, if you have questions or you want to be part of the conversation, by all means, unmute your microphone and ask a question. We want to make this as interactive as possible. We do have a bit of an agenda, but this webinar is a little different because we actually inquired some questions that you had about marketing and websites in general, and we really want to focus on those this morning. So this is again, we're hoping that you have additional questions or follow-up questions because we really want to dig into the things that really are important to you. So again, with that, I'll just go to the next slide, I guess. And so a little bit about Edge, and most people already know this, so I will not spend a lot of time on this, but we are a local digital marketing agency based out of beautiful Lacombe, Alberta, and we work with clients from all over. Our main clientele is probably in Central Alberta and beyond. And we build websites. We help people get found online through digital marketing. And some of the things and some of the questions that came up here for this session are related to that. So we'll be talking about that much more. Again, there's a chat box here on Zoom, so feel free to to open that up and ask any questions that you may have. And I should probably do the same thing here if I find out how. Yeah, so that's available again. So those two channels of communication you have with us this morning. And with me this morning, I have the core Edge marketing team. So I'll introduce them quickly here. If they're, I'm assuming they're on the call here. I see a few of them. So we have with us here, like myself, I'm the owner. And we have, I do most of the client interaction and some customer relations, some account management, some general management, of course. So a little bit of everything. I make coffee, I sweep the floors. And with me also we have Robert here, and Robert is our project manager / digital marketing specialist on the team. So he's working on things like getting projects taken care of, but also working on some of the digital marketing aspects, such as the paid Google Ads, social media, and some of those other things. So welcome, Robert. Then we have Peter Luong. Peter is our creative designer, creative director / designer. So he's the mastermind behind a lot of the graphics that we create on websites and print advertising as well. So welcome, Peter. And we have also Katie. Katie is our content writer, content strategist. So she'll also be the moderator for this session as well. So she'll be checking on the chat box and other ways. So keeping everything on track. So that's who we are, and we'll just go over a brief agenda here. So what we did this time, generally speaking, for the webinars, we have a set topic that we just prepare for you. And of course, we try to pick topics that are relevant to you. And I think we've succeeded for the most part. But for this webinar, we really wanted to find out what are some of the additional things that you would be interested in, and what we could cover and really help you to improve your website or your marketing in general. So that's what we did. So we sent out a quick survey. So thank you very much for everybody replying to that, because that's really helpful. And these are some of the topics that came up in questions. And we're hoping to get through all this. Now, if your question that you asked through email to us is not covered, or just simply because we run out of time, or we don't address your question well enough, by all means, let us know right away. Then we can kind of dig into that area a bit more. So we would appreciate that. So what are some of the things that keep you up at night? So becoming more focused about your marketing. Like where do you spend your energy? What should you be doing first that will give you the best result for your organization or business? So that came back in several questions. Then there was a question, some questions about, some website 101, like what is important about a website, domains, hosting, how does that all work? Like some of those buzzwords, I guess in the business, we talk about those all the time, and we just assume that everybody knows what they mean, but that's not necessarily the case. E-commerce, of course, is a big area of interest for a lot of our clients right now, and a lot of businesses in general, right? Like, how can I add e-commerce to an existing site, or how can I get into that game? And what are some of the pitfalls and maybe some of the challenges that come in that territory? Google Ads, we always get questions about Google Ads, how we can better manage them and what they're for. So we'll try to cover that as well. In our webinars over the last 6 months, we've talked a lot about marketing messaging. So your core marketing message, what you tell your clients about your company. And again, there were some additional questions about it as well. So we're going to go back to that and try to answer those. Online reviews and reputation management is a really important part of your local kind of online presence. So again, we'll be touching on that as well. And then we'll talk about some elements of good logo design, because we got some, we always get questions about that as well. So, and then on top of that, again, I say it one more time, we also have room for additional questions. So we're going to stay within the hour. We want to respect everybody's time, but we want to cover a lot again. But we want to be very focused. So at any time you feel that we're going into on a rabbit trail that's no longer relevant, please let us know. So. Awesome.
Yeah.
So the first,
if I can interject, Peter,
yes,
we do have a set agenda, but we do want to kind of ask any questions that you come up at any time. So actually, Sally has a question in the chat. Thank you very much, Sally, for your question. So we can kind of start with Sally's question if that works, Peter.
Okay, sure. I just have to go find it here. Okay.
Yeah. So what is a reasonable number of emails to send in to your customers every month, and how can I nurture my email list to get them to buy from me?
Okay, that's a great question. There's definitely different opinions on the frequency of sending information to your existing clients through an email list. Now, the main part is that whatever frequency you decide on, that you give them value for valuable information. So if you have only room for valuable information, say like once a week or once a month, then I would highly recommend, only sending an email once a month, for example, right? So it's really important with email marketing. We find that you give people valuable information and really help them to learn more about you or actually solve problems that you solve for your clients. And the last thing you want to do is just send too many emails, and people get overloaded, and they start to become annoyed, right? So it depends a little bit on your industry as well. Like, would you mind sharing the industry you're in?
Yes, I am a visual artist, and the bulk of my income comes from teaching classes. And now, because of COVID, most of my classes are online.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah. I guess as a business owner, I don't want to always be perceived as somebody that is trying to sell stuff. No. I'd rather get ideas for how I can build relationships with my customers and then try and sell to them.
No, exactly. And you're absolutely on the right track with that. Like, nobody really wants to be sold to. And as a matter of fact, if there's one negative connotation that comes with marketing and advertising, it's just that, right? Like, you're always trying to sell something. So the best strategy, again, is to develop valuable content that is actually has nothing to do maybe with it's related to the topic, of course, but not necessarily like buying my next course or sign up here all the time, right? It's kind of similar to social media. Like, we have this the 20-80 rule. So we say 80% of the time you make a deposit, and then 20% of the time you can make a withdrawal, meaning that 1 in 5 emails could actually have a more clear call to action, right? Or like a special that you run, but you don't want to do that like 100% out of the time, because then people get annoyed and there's just not it's not going to be very effective. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So, and then the frequency, you need to kind of know your audience, right? So again, if you really have every week you have something new, and it's really and the list you have, the audience you have is interested in that, then once a week is definitely a good frequency. But it's also an awful lot of content you need to create as well. So
Right.
there again too, you need to find a balance of creating the content for that, and then also what is your audience looking for? What are they expecting? So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So thanks for the question. So any other questions right from the get-go, like before we get into any of the other ones? Now, before I go any further, I just want to introduce one more member of our team. Jason joined us on the call as well.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
And I think most of some of you at least know Jason. Jason is our resident web developer and web guru. So thanks for joining us, Jason, and giving us some more technical support, I guess, if the questions are becoming more technical. So, all right, if there's no other questions at this point, I'm just going to go on to the first question that we received through the survey, and it had to do with domains and hosting. So again, this is actually Jason's area of expertise, and of course I know my way around this as well. But the question is like, could you share some information on domains and domain hosting? So again, you want to give that a go, Jason, or you want me to?
Good. I could take a shot at it. So I've always kind of, through the history of being introduced to the internet, have like to understand domains and domain hosting the same way you do with having a house and having an address. And so your domain name is just essentially your address. So 1, 2, 3 big. There, I'm unmuted again.
Sorry, Jason, it was my bad.
So yeah, I've always understood that the best way to understand the domains and hosting is where your house lives, and your domain is how you get there. And of course, yeah, there's all kinds of different options nowadays for the suffix of your domain, like the .ca or the .com or .org, or there's even some more expensive ones that give you a bit more customization and uniqueness, like .tech or even just .website. But that's sort of like the easiest way to understand domains and hosting. Yeah, Peter's got here in the notes. There's a website called who.is, and that is a great little tool that I like to use quite a bit when it comes to troubleshooting and helping our clients like understand, like, oh, where is my domain registered? Like, sometimes people over the years forget where domains have been registered, or even who might actually be in charge of managing those things. And so that website's a great little tool. Kind of helps you understand, maybe points you in the right direction of where to start looking for. Is the website registered with GoDaddy? Or in our case, we like to use rebel.ca. It used to be called domains at cost.ca back in the day. They did some branding updates and changes. They're really slick. And then of course, yeah, hosting. Hosting is your general platform for where your website will actually live, where even if you have self-hosted emails, that's where it will be located as well. And of course, any of the things that we do for building your website will actually take place on your hosting. And of course, we offer a hosting service with all of our packages. And we use the fullhost.com. They're a Canadian-based company with data centers in Vancouver and Toronto, only in those 2 locations in Canada, which is really nice for keeping your content where you want it in Canada, and not at the prying eyes of external governments and all that kind of stuff. And of course, it's all secure. All our hosting accounts come with built-in SSL certificates and to keep.
I think now you've lost most of the people, but that's okay.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's okay. No, thanks, thanks, Jason, for clarifying that. Warren has a question.
So I'm just wondering, does it matter if you have a .ca or a .com, what the difference is?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Do you want me to take a stab at that, Jason?
Yeah.
So the .ca, of course, stands for Canada, right? And the .com is a more international flavor of domain. It's really difficult, like if you start a new business or any organization, to actually get a .com that matches your brand name, right? So that over the years they've added more domain extension, and that's kind of like the last 2 or 3 characters in the domain name itself. So we always advise people to, if they're in Canada and they are servicing a local audience, so to speak, the .ca is almost like preferred. Although if you can get the .com in your flavor, in your brand name, then that's, of course, you want to. I think every business should own those domain names just in case somebody else walks away with them, right? Because it's a first come, first serve scenario. So if it has happened that a competitor has got a hold of a domain name. I think it actually happened with one of the presidential candidates that that they actually got the domain name, the .com, from a competing from another candidate. So you never want to get in that situation. So if your organization operates in Canada, the .ca is perfect. If you can get the .com, go for it, because it has a bit more prestige maybe internationally. But those are still, 90% of the work that we do has either one of those domains. And I know there's .net, there is all kinds of other things. We haven't really seen a big uptake on it, unless you're lucky enough to find a domain that's really part of your actually brand name. Like I'm just thinking, Warren is with an organization called Cheris Village. So if cheris.village, if that was a thing, that was a domain name, and I'm not 100% sure if the .village is available, but that would actually be a possible domain name that you could kind of work with in your marketing, right? Because it's super easy to remember. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, so like on the bottom of this slide, like every website basically has this IP address, right? Which is a kind of your spot on the internet. Now that a number like this is not very easy to remember, so that's why they came up with the actual domain names. But essentially, the domain name, whatever it is, points back to that IP address. So I mean, that may be a little technical, but hopefully that kind of covers a little bit of the domains. Then I just put this slide in as well to add to that a little bit, like what makes a good domain name. Well, again, have
I think Peter may have. Peter, I think you may have been frozen there for about 20 seconds there.
Okay. I apologize for that. So anyway, these are some pointers that you can take into consideration when you take out a domain name and if you want to brand your business. So again, it is a bit of a challenge because a lot of the domain names are taken, but these are just some ideas that you can keep in mind when you get to that point. Is that better?
Can hear you loud and clear now.
Yeah. Okay. An unstable connection here, it says so.
Peter, we just have another question in the chat. Sally was wondering, what website do you recommend for someone that isn't too techy? She's having a little trouble. She has a WordPress site, but has some difficulty managing it.
Okay. Yeah. No. Excellent question. So yeah, there's all kinds of different platforms on the market, right? WordPress is a very popular platform that a lot of websites are built on. We at Edge, we actually use a different system called Concrete 5. So the clients on the call here, they know what that means, or at least that's the way you get into the websites. And it's in a way it serves the same purpose as WordPress, but it's just a way simpler system. So it's easier to update, it's more secure. It has a lot of advantages. There's other large players as well. There's Joomla, there's Drupal. There's some really, large platforms that a lot of people are using. If you are looking for like a do-it-yourself solution, right? Like if you actually want to build your own website, there's platforms like Wix and Squarespace. It's actually on this, it's actually on the slide here, and that it has to do with the e-commerce capabilities of those platforms, but it's also a platform to build a website on. So again, like that's not the space that we're in. Like we're generally building websites for our clients, because they don't want to do it themselves, so they don't really have the expertise to do it. So, but there's those other platforms available that you can look into, and they're, Wix and Squarespace are probably easier and simpler solutions than what you have right now as WordPress. So there's pros and cons. So like there's also a lot of WordPress developers out there as well, right? There's a lot of people supporting that ecosystem. And there's a lot of plugins, for example, available for WordPress, but it's just something that we always stayed away from ourselves because we're in the custom website building business. So we build everything from scratch. So you could, Sally, you could look into some of those platforms. Now it's always a ton of work, of course, to move from one platform to the next, of course. But yeah, those are some options that would be available. And there's many more, but those are some of the more well-known ones.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so that brings us to the question about e-commerce. So like if you have an existing website already, and you have good traffic and you have a lot of authority with your website, because that's something you build up over time as well, right? So I'm talking about an existing company or an existing organization. There is, a couple of different options that we have worked on, like adding the e-commerce to the website. So one is Shopify, and some of you may be familiar with that name because it does make it in the news from time to time. It's a Canadian company, and their market cap, or their net worth, I guess, is larger than that of the Royal Bank of Canada at the moment. So it's a huge success, and they have hundreds of thousands of clients all over the world that they provide e-commerce services for. So the way we use Shopify is we integrate it into an existing website. So it looks like the people are on your website, but in reality, they're actually on the Shopify platform. And one of the reasons why we do that is Shopify and Ecwid and some of those other providers have a very good system of dealing with e-commerce, like to have a store, to have the payment, to have the shipping things figured out. So instead of us redeveloping that for clients, we like to tap into something that's already there and is already built, and it works really well. So those are some of the things that we look at, we have experience with. Now, again, going back to Squarespace and Wix, they have e-commerce capabilities as well, right? So in some cases, if you have a marketing website that really generates most of the traffic to your company, you don't want to throw that away, because the cookie cutter website builders like such as Squarespace and Wix, in our opinion, they're not as good as actually generating new business or getting people to your site, because you're kind of lost in. You're using the same template as tens of thousands of other businesses. So you'll have a bit more challenge to show up on Google, but the functionality itself of the shopping cart is decent. Like it's actually quite good. So again, we like to look at websites from a marketing point of view, and then the e-commerce is generally an additional portion for most of our clients, and that's kind of the world we live in. So if your whole business model is strictly e-commerce, and you have a large a big assortment of products and services. There's a higher level programs or platforms available as well, such as Magento and a few others. But that's kind of out of the scope what we're familiar with. And most small businesses probably don't need that because it's just way too complicated again to actually get it up and running. Yeah, does that make sense? So these are, again, there's others. Like if anybody on the call has other suggestions or has experience with the platform that they like, I would love to hear from that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Sally's question there, if that's all right, Peter. A lot of reasons why customers or certain current clients come to our website is for the easy management system for like yourself as a client to edit the website without having to need to educate yourself on all of the different tools that WordPress provides. It's super user friendly, and that is one of the values that we provide to clients when we build websites for them, is that you are able to log in and make changes on the go yourself, and it's super user friendly to do. It's a matter of a couple of clicks instead of having to play around in the background of the system and jump onto multiple different pages. You can do it yourself on the go.
Yeah, thanks for.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that, Robert.
Yep.
Yeah, so then we'll just I think this is, if anybody else has any questions, additional questions about e-commerce, we'll just move on to the next topic.
Just another question that we have kind of still related to websites. What are some tips to get the best possible SEO or search engine optimization on a website? Okay,
perfect. Yeah, so I'll start that, and maybe Robert, you can add to it as well. But I think what we've seen in SEO, like search engine optimization, it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people have a lot of opinions about. There's also a lot of people that will tell you that they have the solution to have your website rank #1 all the time. Like we work in this industry, and we know it's not quite that simple. But there's best practices that you can follow on getting ranked well in on Google, right? Like on a search engine, if it's Google basically owns 90% of that market. So it starts with generally speaking, it starts with a really solid website that is fully optimized for the search engines. And again, the system that we're using is very, very good at that. Like it's a very Google loves to look at our websites apparently, because they are structured in such a way that they make sense to them. And then most of our clients are getting really good, what we call the free results with their website. The other big thing is the content on the website. Like it used to be that you would put keywords behind the scenes, and then Google would pick up on that, and you would repeat the same keyword like 50 times behind the scenes, and you would rank higher. Those days are long gone, thankfully, because it's kind of scamming the system. So Google has become extremely sophisticated of making a judgment call on the content and the overall structure of your website. And they will actually, their bot, of course, there's no humans involved necessarily, but their bot actually reads the text on your pages. So again, if you have good content that has valuable information for the people that are searching for information. So if it's, in Sally's case, maybe the art, education, or whatever the magic key phrase is, or painting class course. Sorry, Sally, I try to figure out exactly what it would be. But of course, then you want to write about that on your website, right? You want to have that content. And so if people want to, 5 things to think about when you sign up for an art class, for example, or what are the 5 mediums that you should consider if you want to get into this. Yep. By having some of that information on your website, we have found that is probably an extremely important ranking factor these days, because Google just wants to get the results, get the website shown to their people that are searching that are most relevant to them, right? So those are 2 big ones. And there's a whole bunch of technical stuff that you can do as well. And Jason would work on that, and Robert would work on that. But if you start there, that's probably a really good first step. And yeah, you want to add to that, Robert?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of talk about potential strategy. One thing that we always highly recommend is look where your business or where a majority of your customers are coming from, and try to include, don't go too broad and say, you know, Alberta wide, because chances of that happening, for you starting to show up when somebody searches, let's say in Alberta for your product or service, and let's say they're in Grand Prairie, chances are your website isn't going to rank for them as it would if you were to focus more locally. So let's say, Sally, you're focused in Red Deer. I'm just putting an assumption out there. You focus with your text and some of the keywords with your geographical location in there. Start small and then go out, because you'll get a lot better chance of ranking on the top or on the first page to show up when you start local when people search for it, instead of saying, you know, I'm Western Canada Art Store, for example, because then bigger businesses that have more resources they can put towards, you know, SEO and advertising will show up first more than your local company. So one strategy is start locally, optimize for Red Deer, you know, be it Paint Store Red Deer or Digital Art Red Deer, and then slowly expand from there. And one other thing is talk to your customers and see what kind of keywords they're using to find you, or how they communicate with you over phone or over email, and use those keywords, phrases on the content, like Peter said, because chances are that's exactly what they'll type into their search engine, Google, for instance, to find a business like yourself. So use that, and then make sure the content is also structured to be easy to read from a client perspective. So it's easily readable for a human, not a machine. And that's something Google is starting to slowly pick up to on now, is make sure that it's actually user-friendly, easy to read, easy to understand, but still highlights those key terms that emphasize what your business does and what problems you solve.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Robert.
Yeah.
There's a lot more we can say about those things, right? But we just want to kind of limit it to some main points. Yeah, then another question that kind of came out in the survey was, how do I determine how to best apply my marketing dollars? Again, I started out with that right at the beginning. Like, how do I know where to focus? Like, you know, there's so many different options, so many different directions that you can go into. What we would recommend in most cases is to start with a plan. Right, the biggest challenge that I see small businesses have, they don't really have a plan. They haven't really thought through what they're trying to achieve, and that's one of the reasons, I think, why they're struggling sometimes making sense of their marketing and how the website plays into that as well. So the three basic steps that every business should take is, you know, figure out who your clients are, like your target market. Like, not everybody can serve everybody, right? So you want to make sure that you really understand who's buying from you, like who's your ideal client, right? Like, we always think in small business that we need to serve everybody, and it's in a way we do, right? We don't necessarily say no very often, but we also don't want to attract the wrong clients that actually will never buy from us, or they will just not be a good fit for our service. I mean, it's if it's not a good fit for the customer, then, you know, they probably shouldn't buy from us, right? So then you really want to hone in on, like, what's that ideal client. We have a tool that we use. It's called Persona. So maybe some of you are familiar with that term. It's basically describing some typical customers that would be a really ideal client for you, and it could be one person. It could be three different personas. So at Edge, we actually give them names as well. We actually give them a real name, so everybody in the team knows if we talk about. And he's not on this call, so I can mention his name. And even if he was on this call, it wouldn't matter anyway. But we have Terry as a persona. Like, that's a typical small business owner that we do work for. And as soon as we say, hey, like, if we create a message, and that's the next step in this process, when we create any kind of messaging or how we talk to this person, we actually think about a real person. So it's kind of like a conversation with a client, instead of just writing in such a way that you're trying to appeal to everybody. You're actually making it very personal. Like, it's you talking to a client. And the third step, and Katie, I want to ask you to maybe add a little bit to this whole process, because this is kind of your area of expertise. But then the third the third part of that initial, what we consider the marketing plan or strategy, is once you know who your client is, once you know what your message is, like what these different people are interested in, and you can have different messages for different people, right? And then the third step of that is based on those two things. Now you're in a much better position to actually figure out, what should we do? What kind of tools and tactics should we use to connect with those people, right? So, Katie, you want to say anything else to that?
Yeah, definitely. Like as part of our strategy first services, one big thing that we do that is definitely beneficial is client interviews, actually talking to your clients, finding out where they are online. If they do research, if they research our products online, just kind of getting it directly from them, kind of the information of where you can target them directly, whether it be social media or through email campaigns.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things you can do, but really, and you can make it, you can expand on this of course, but what we have found, it's better to have a very simple marketing strategy that you can actually understand and act on, instead of building a marketing plan that has like 50 or 100 pages, and I've seen many of them over the years, that nobody really knows why they're actually written that marketing plan. They don't really understand necessarily like what's behind it and what the goals are. So our suggestion again is that just keep it as simple as possible and really focus on the 20% of the activities in your marketing that actually will give you 80% of the results. And it's different for every situation, but that's really a powerful strategy. And there's always more you can do, but there's only so many dollars and so many hours in the day that you have to put towards marketing. So it's really important to stay focused. So I do have, I get these warnings that my internet connection is unstable. So when I freeze, just please let me know. Otherwise I'll be talking to nobody here. So, all right. So again, I'm not sure if that whoever asked that question, if it completely answers it, but at least it's a beginning. So let's then go to Google Ads, and Google Ads is an area that we're very active in. I think a lot of people are familiar somewhat with how Google Ads work. You basically, earlier we talked about the organic results, like showing up on Google, like rank high. In this case, it's a shortcut. We're actually buying our way into the Google ecosystem and actually show up on searches. So Robert, you want to just quickly, so that's what Google Ads are, and I think a lot of you kind of have an understanding what it is. But the specific question is now, how do you know how much to put towards that, like as part of your overall marketing spend? First of all, should you do Google Ads, and if you do, if you want to try it out, like then what is a number that you should put on there? Like Robert, do you want to take a stab at that?
Absolutely, yeah. So the question was, how do you determine the dollar amount to advertise on Google, which is always a great question and a tough question at the same time. And the one thing we always recommend is first, start with, is it part of your strategy? Like Peter mentioned earlier, is it a good resource you can use to drive, what is your goal? Is it to drive, more traffic to your website? Is it to build awareness? First determine your goal before you decide to jump on or, use this tool to your advantage. But one thing I always recommend to determine the amount you should potentially be spending on Google advertisement is research the average cost per click in your market. Now, I know that might sound really fancy. Basically, what that means is do some research, even go into Google yourself and type in the same keywords or phrases that you would use or your customers would potentially use to find your business, and see if anybody else is kind of advertising on that for those keywords. And there's actually tools you can use. One that you can actually use is called Google Keyword Finder. It's part of the Google Ads platform, and you can actually see what the average cost would be if somebody were to click on that keyword you would potentially be bidding on. So I'm just going to go for Sally here, or even Warren here. I'll use Warren here. We use retirement home, and we wanted to kind of be broad. First we did Lacombe, and then we went broader. Look at how many competitors are in there, and then look at, okay, if they're all bidding on retirement home, is it realistic for me to be part of that, to bid on that amount? And if it is, then I can kind of allocate, okay, if I want to show up X amount of times each day, I know I need to put in, let's say, $10, $20, $30, $40. It really depends on your market and what your product is. And that's the other bullet point there, is does it have a high search volume? Do a lot of people look for it? That might be another indicator that you might be getting more competition. So you might have to look at increase or spending a little bit more versus somebody that has a very niche market that only gets, you know, maybe a couple searches per day in the area that you want to focus on. And then, you know, again, determine your goal. So if you want to get a lot of awareness, you know, look at the different tools that Google's offers. Do you want to rather do display ads that have a more shotgun approach and getting your message in front of a large volume of your potential clients, or do you want to do more direct, you know, laser focused ads? And those are a little bit more expensive, but that's when they type in the keyword and then your ad has a potential to show up on their screen. So those are a couple of different things you can look at to determine how much money you should be looking at to spend on Google.
Yeah, so thank you, Robert. And I think it's also very important to start small, relatively, right? And try it out and see what works and what doesn't work, instead of throwing thousands of dollars on a campaign. You know, like what companies are spending on Google Ads is all over the board. You know, we have clients that spend close to $10,000 a month. And the reason why they do that is because it works for them. But most small businesses don't have to go to that extent right away or ever, because that's just not really, you know, the point. Like, so start small. And then if you have a product or service that has a high search intent, basically meaning that people are, as soon as they start searching for your service, like, for example, I need a plumber to fix my plumbing lines. For companies that have services and products like that, Google Ads is a really powerful tool. Whereas other niche markets where nobody's really searching for the service, the Google Ads are a lot less harder to as we have found in the past. Yeah, so that's something. So again, it depends on your competition. It depends on the service you provide and some of those things. So again, start small. It's an extremely powerful tool. The reason why companies are spending money with Google compared to some other more traditional channels is that, you know, first of all, it works and it's completely measurable. You can see how many people have clicked, and so it's quite a system, and that's one of the reasons why Google is making their billions, right? They wouldn't be making that kind of money if it wouldn't work for small businesses. So. Great. Again, feel free to add any follow-up questions. So the next question had to do with how do I divide up my time when it comes to marketing? So it's almost like similar to one of the questions that we already talked about. Again, start with a strategy. You know, like find out like where your customers are at and where do they search for information, where they're at in their search process as well. Because that's another important thing. Like, there's different stages that people go to generally from in buying from you. It's not always like a slam dunk. The first time they hear about you, they order your course, or they get the apartment, or whatever they do. Oftentimes it's a process, right? And we kind of know that ourselves as well. Like, it's sometimes we need to be nurtured, we need to be educated, you need to build trust with your audience, make sure that they trust you enough to work with you. So those are all things that are important. So again, go back and come up with a very basic plan, and you can almost make it fancier later, but then start focusing on the things that will make the most impact, and don't necessarily skip or try to do everything at once. And it's the same for social media. Don't go on all, like, if social media is your thing and is helpful with your audience because your audience is active on social media, then of course, again, even there, like, I think it's much better to do one platform very well. Like, if Facebook is your thing, or that's where your clients live, do Facebook really well, but don't necessarily feel pressure to do all the other platforms all at the same time, because that's generally where you get yourself in trouble. Like you're diluting your times to the point that you don't do a really good job of anything, right? And I've seen it with a lot of different businesses, and that's okay. You don't have to feel guilty about it. Like, but again, if you don't have a plan, then you're just basically copying what everybody else is doing, right? So if TikTok comes along, go like, yeah, TikTok is a great platform too. But you always have to ask your question, why are we doing this? Like, how does it support what we're trying to achieve? Okay, we had a more specific question about working with not-for-profit boards. So again, strategy, right? Like the person that asked this question is dealing with the volunteer board and is wondering how she can get her work done and have the buy-in and the support of the board. And that's, I think, if you establish a plan together with the people you work with, and they buy into it, then you're in a much better position to actually execute on that plan. So. Okay, so the next question, and since I think Warren, I think was this your question or was it somebody else's question? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, it was my question.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm gonna give this one to Katie.
Yeah, so hub pages are basically kind of a culmination of different pages. So it's kind of a home for for a specific topic with different content. So say if you write a blog post on the benefits of the seniors home living, and then you write another blog post on another topic on seniors living. So when you have multiple forms of content, it's beneficial for not only your audience to find it in one place, but also it helps with SEO rankings as well. So when you have multiple blog posts, or even it could be external links to other websites as well, as long as it's related to the same content and it all lives on that one page, it's going to be beneficial for both you and your audience as well. So just kind of think that central point for all the similar topics is basically what hub pages are.
So I have I have like 5 blog posts that I prepared. I just don't know how to post them onto the website.
Yeah, so well, we can definitely assist you with that, but like there's a blog section on your website, right?
I'm not sure that, yeah, maybe there is. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can, after the call, we can definitely give you some support on that. So
sure.
It basically hub pages is a relatively new concept. And again, going back to my earlier comment about the importance of content when it comes to your search engine optimization, blog posts used to be the thing, right? Like if you keep up your website on a regular basis, you just get better rankings with Google because you're providing valuable information to your customers. So hub pages is more or less like a blog on steroids. Like it's a different way of organizing it and putting it in such a format that is actually, it becomes a really important resource. So it's not just like standalone blog posts and articles. It's actually, you could have something on different topics, right? But and so it has been proven that Google, when they find out a website that has a hub page structure to it, you could very well people could end up on your website just because of that resource section. And again, it doesn't even sell them anything yet. But if you have them on your website now, of course, you go like, well, okay, well, what's the company that's behind this, right? So you have a much better chance of connecting with those people.
Okay, good.
So yeah, again, there's a lot more to be said about that, but that's kind of what we're experimenting with us, and it's been proven to work quite well. So I just want to shift gears now for a minute and go to another topic that we get asked questions about, and we have Peter on the call here, and he's working on this. So the question was like, what are some of the components of a good logo design? So Peter, it's okay when I put you on the spot.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I guess like the points that I might address with regards to good logo design are not just specific to logos in general, but it also applies to like graphic design and print design and website design, like all these points that I think are important to address when discussing logo design. And I think the first thing is that, yeah, it represents your company. You might want to consider thinking how you can make this logo that you're designing represent your brand and how your business operates and how you communicate with your customers. Like, if you want to be a leader, you might want to think about some icons or the styling of the logo that might amplify leadership, or if you want to be bold and strong, you might want to design the logo in such a way as well. You also want to appeal to your audience. So you don't want to design the logo just for yourself. You want to make sure that it resonates with your target market. So you might, as an example, if your target market is elderly people, you might want to consider more of an emphasis on readability and clarity, right? Whereas if you're dealing with a youthful target market, you can be a little bit more abstract and creative and a bit more out there, more fun, to give your logo more youthfulness. But I think overall, you want to make sure that your logo is clear and communicates the message that you want to portray to your target market effectively, and that they perceive it effectively. So you don't always. I think simplicity is a good thing too. You want to make sure that your logo designs are simple and they communicate effectively. I think simplicity kind of goes hand in hand with clarity, right? If something is convoluted and there's a lot going on in the design, it can be confusing and distracting, and it doesn't necessarily communicate the message well. And that's not to say that if you have a lot that you want to put into your logo, with regards to different aspects of your business, like it doesn't have to be just one thing, as long as it's communicated effectively. And simplicity, yeah, tends to lead to the simplicity of the design tends to lead to a bit more clarity. And yeah, you also want to think about versatility. The graphics, the logo, sometimes there's things like people want to put watercolor effects in their logo, and it doesn't always translate nicely to other mediums. And that kind of goes hand in hand with simplicity as well. The simpler the message and the styling of the logo, the easier it'll replicate on various platforms.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's helpful. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, no worries.
So so would you say that you would if you design a logo, do you design it for the business owner, or do you design it for the audience that looks at the logo?
I think both, right? You have to take both into consideration. Yeah, like a lot of the times, like what we do with clients is we'll try to get an understanding of their business first. We'll meet with the client and discuss kind of how their business operates and what's important to them. And then once we have those ideas from the client, we'll try and design it in a way that appeals to their target market, to their target market. And that's kind of where, like, I think on the screen there, Peter, like where it has like the logo and brand identity checklist that we kind of go through, like it has a bunch of different sliders, and it just kind of helps us to give an idea of what the client wants, and also to what the target market wants, right? So once we kind of know what the business owner wants to amplify in their logo, what's important to them about their business, what sets them apart, we can take those ideas and design them in a way that appeals to their target market.
For sure.
If that makes sense. It's a hand-in-hand thing, right? Like you don't want to design it for one specifically or the other, but you want to have both of them in there. And you also want to communicate it in a way that's simple and effective. And I think all those considerations together is what makes a professional design.
Yeah. Well, thanks for clarifying that, Peter.
Yeah.
we have about 5 minutes left, 4 actually. So I'm just gonna open it up and say, hey, like if there's any topic, because we have a few more things that we can talk about. If there would be one topic that you would like us to talk about, I would love to hear from the people that are on the call. Is there any burning question that you've asked us and we haven't addressed yet? So because that's quite possible, we just had a lot of questions to cover here. So.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wondered what your thoughts were on, I've tried a couple of different email services like MailChimp and Constant Contact.
Okay.
And with the Constant Contact, you have to pay like a monthly fee of $45 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Do any of you know anything about either of those two email services, and what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like we don't have a ton of experience with Constant Contact, but I do know it's a large player. We've successfully are using for some of our email clients that we actually manage the emails for. We use MailChimp. Again, MailChimp has a free plan, but as soon as you get over like a certain number of people on your list, you start paying as well. Plus they put a little branding on the bottom of their emails, right? So again, not a big deal, but again, I think, Robert, the MailChimp starts at about $19.95, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's right. I think as soon as you reach over 2,000 customers or email imports, then you have to start paying for it. And yeah, like you said, it starts quite low.
But I think both of those, the fact that you're already using one of those programs is it's a big step forward, right? Because there's people that are trying to use Outlook and do mass emails to that, which is not right. You get yourself in trouble, with this privacy laws when you send emails and all that. And these email providers they're taking care of some of those things for you, right? Like a one-click unsubscribe and some of those things. So I can't really make a good comparison between the two. We've also used a program called Campaign Monitor, which is more towards agencies. So maybe not as applicable to you. What we're using right now is actually more than just like an email program. It's actually like a CRM, like a customer relationship management tool that also has emails. Now, we did have a little bit of a glitch with the emails, it seems like, for this webinar, but not sure what that was all about. But it's called ActiveCampaign. So it is, and Warren, I think you're familiar with HubSpot, right? Like I think we introduced that to you a long time ago. And again, everybody in the industry talks about Salesforce. Maybe some of you have heard of Salesforce. There's thousands of different options out there. And it's based on your needs, but what I'm getting at, like if you want to take your emails campaigning, like one step further, then there's other tools as well. So it says ActiveCampaign, that's what we're using. It's a bit more like they're basically marketing automation platforms. That's what they are presenting themselves at. So they go much farther than just simply sending an email. So again, we're experimenting with integrating some of these things, right? Because then you can, based on what somebody has replied to, which campaign they have replied to, you can put them in a different queue, for example, and have some automated emails set up. And I think we're all familiar with some of those, right? Like you sign up for a newsletter and all of a sudden, boom, you get, again, hopefully valuable information. Like a lot of marketers are very good at figuring out how to give you value, and then you don't mind getting those emails, right? As soon as they start spamming you with stuff that you're not interested in, of course, that's a wrong way of doing it. And you simply unsubscribe to them. So again, I think you're on the right track with that. MailChimp is definitely got a lot of things going for it, because it's kind of the number one, the top dog in the email campaign space. But like just like anything else in life, like once your free kind of subscription runs out because of the success of your business and the growth of your email list, you'll have to start paying small fees. But again, depending on your business model, it could be a huge payoff, right? Like we've seen email campaigns we're doing for clients like actually result in really great conversion rates, for example, right? Like, and again, if you have 1,000 people on your email list and they're all very interested in what you do, you make them an offer, you're going to have people that they're waiting for that offer to come by and say, yeah, like today's the day that I'm going to sign up for this course, or today's the day that I'm actually going to take the next step because I know you enough. I already feel I know you, like, right? Like, so that relationship of trust is so important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we're a little bit over the hour here, so again, I want to respect everybody's time. So there's no rush to go anywhere. Like, we'll definitely stay on for a few more minutes here to answer any other questions that you have. Thank you again for showing up and being part of this. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you to the Edge team to be part of this call as well. I had to motivate them a little bit in some cases to be on the call, but you guys did an amazing job, and then you're what makes Edge. So I really wanted to introduce you to our audience as well. So again, we're going to take a little break here for the next. I don't know, Katie. It's up to you, I guess, when we're going to go back at this. But I suspect that we're going to take a little bit of break for the summer season. And then we'll come back in the fall with we're continuing on with topics. If there's anything, again, like we had really good feedback on this, we may actually have some ideas for topics for some of those webinars based on the feedback we received from you. But again, if you have anything else that we haven't covered yet, by all means, let us know, and we would love to build a program around that. And who knows, maybe in the future we'll have actually lunch included again, and have people hosted in our own space. Yeah, there you go. I'm just throwing it out there. It's not that far-fetched. But until then, we'll continue on with this. So thanks for your time. Have a wonderful summer, and I hope to see you again soon. And again, don't feel you have to go anywhere, but we'll just stay on here for a few minutes and okay, it seems like most people are dropping off to go for lunch.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.